everyone, this is Mr. Chang coming back to you guys with some box and whisker plots. Today we're going to go ahead and compare two box and whisker plots, which is on my period 3 and my period 4 test scores. And obviously these test scores are made up. They are not true information. So what we want to do with this made up information is to figure out which class did better and to give at least two reasons using percentages to justify our reasoning. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. When we go ahead and use percentages, just remember that we use increments of 25%. And the reason why we use increments of 25% is because in every box and whisker, each section is 25% of the data. So what I'm doing here is I'm dividing each section and I'm putting the number 25% above each one to help me go ahead and read this information. So again, each section from my lower extreme to my lower quartile is 25% of my data. From my lower quartile to my median, so my lower quartile to my median is another 25%. My median to my upper quartile is another 25%. And from my upper quartile to my upper extreme is another 25% in both classes. It doesn't matter how wide or narrow each section is, they are still 25% of the class. Now, when we also go ahead and compare our box and whisker plots, it is very tempting to go ahead and to look at our extremes. Now, we never use our extremes when we're comparing our box and whisker plots in general because they only represent one person. So again, the extremes only represent one person, and I don't want to know information about one person. I want to know in general about the entire class. So which class did better? Now, when I compare them, I'm going to go ahead and look for a couple of things. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and compare my medians. So I'm going to take a look at our medians, and what we see here is that our median in period 3 looks like it's going to hit right around 60. Whereas in period 4, our median looks like it's going to hit right around 75. Now, if I go ahead and take a look at the two classes, we can see that in period 3, we have two sections that is above our median, which means 50% of our class scored above that 60. Whereas in period 4, 50% of period 4 scored above a 70, or above a 75, I'm sorry. So what we can say here is that period 4 seems to have done better because, so we're just going to go ahead and say period 4 did better. Because, and I'm just going to go ahead and abbreviate because, we can see that 50% of period 4's class, 50% of period 4 scored above a 75. Whereas, and I'm just going to go ahead and write down this transition word, whereas, because I'm doing a comparison here, so I'm comparing here. Whereas 50% of period 3 only scored a 60 or above. So this is one reason why period 4 may have done better. So we can take a look at our medians, and we could go ahead and see that 50% of period 3 only scored a 60 or above, whereas in period 4, 50% of period 4's class scored a 75 or higher. So that's a lot better. Now, that's just one reason. And they asked us to go ahead and find at least two reasons. So I'm just going to go ahead and find another reason. So one way is to compare our medians. We could have done the same thing with our upper quartiles. We can go ahead and compare our two quartiles here. And we could see that in period 3, the upper quartile is at 75, which means 25% of our class scored a 75 or higher. Whereas in period 4, if I take a look at my upper quartile, which is an 85, 25% of period 4 scored an 85 or higher. So I could have done the same thing just looking at my upper quartiles rather than my median. Now, another possible way is to go ahead and compare the medians with a quartile, and that way I could go ahead and see, well, where do they both line up? Well, over here we could see that the upper quartile in period 3 matches the median of period 4. So if I have an upper quartile and a median that are lined up with one another, I could go ahead and use that with my comparisons. So here, what I can say is I can see that period 4 did better. And period 4 did better because 50% of the class, 50% of period 4 scored a 75 or higher, whereas only 25% of period 3 scored a 75 or higher. So let's go ahead and write that down. I'm going to go ahead and write down period 4 in this particular case. Again, did better. Because, and again, here's my reason. The same reason that we had in the first one, 50% of period 4 scored above a 75. And then I'm going to put in that transition word again, whereas, because we're doing a comparison, only 25% of period 3 scored above a 75. So what I did is I had to go ahead and look at where a quartile and a median lined up with one another. So I could go ahead and compare a median with a median. I could compare a quartile with a quartile, and we kind of said that one verbally, and that one also showed that period 4 did better. Or I could compare a median with a quartile if they line up with one another. Now, somebody could have stated that period 3 did better because they could have looked at the lower quartiles. And we could go ahead and see that in the lower quartiles for period 3, 75% of the class, that means 3/4 of the class, scored a 55 or higher, whereas in period 4, 75% of their class only scored a 50. So somebody could argue that period 3 did better. Now, if I had to go ahead and choose, well, period 4 had a lot more reasons. That was only one reason that showed that period 3 did better. But we've already stated 3 reasons why period 4 did better. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and say that period 4 was the better class. I hope this helped you how to read and analyze box and whisker plots and compare them. If you have any questions or comments, please leave some below. Like this video if you liked it. Otherwise, good luck, enjoy, and have fun.